I'm Adrienne Enns, and I welcome you to the Intention Sessions podcast. I want to inspire our most intentional living. In each episode, we'll talk to remarkable individuals who will share their authentic journeys and their insights with us. They're going to remind us that life's complexities can be our greatest teachers, and that intentional living can be expressed in an infinite number of ways. I hope you find some inspiration for your most intentional life right here. Today on the podcast, we have Mikaila Cruz. Mikaila is a yoga and meditation teacher. She's a best-selling author and an entrepreneur from New York City. She combines studies of the 8 limbs of yoga with alignment and creating a dynamic flow. As the voice for humanity's evolutionary movement, Mikaila is the founder of Empowerment Within, LLC. This is a consulting firm devoted to empowering people from all walks of life. Her mindful practice is shared with all levels of yoga and meditation students. Over the past decade, Mikaila has been recognized by CNN, NBC Nightly News, Fox, and BBC, and named the Woman of Empowerment by the Washington Times. Her words have also been featured in Manifesting Grace Through Gratitude, Oprah's 21-day meditation experience. Mikaila travels to host classes and workshops in yoga, meditation, and empowerment. Now, Mikaila and I met through Instagram, and it's amazing how friendships can develop there, and now we're connecting further. So I'm really excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Adrienne. It's such a pleasure to finally speak with you in person and to be on your show. I'm really honored.
Thank you so much. And so I want to start, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit, and I have to say, in all honesty, I had to double check this, but you have published this beautiful book called Pursuing Your Destiny, and we'll make that available in the show notes for people. But I know that an experience that really changed your life experience was 9/11. And this is where I had to Google. I was like, I'm pretty sure it happened in 2001, but it seemed like yesterday and such a long time ago. So I want to start with you sharing that experience and really how it's influenced all of the incredible work that you're doing now.
Well, to start off, a lot of people think that, I'm a yoga teacher and I've been practicing yoga for 20 years, but yoga and meditation were a part of my life before 9/11. And 9/11 was a day, many of us who obviously were alive back then, there was a story that just said pretty much what was going on in New York City. There was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of sorrow, shock. But for me, I was not even supposed to be in the building on that morning. I was supposed to be actually I was, but not until later. I was working on a presentation, and the person that I was working with said, would you mind coming in a little early? Could you come in at 8:30? And my hours were anywhere from 9:15 to however late it was because I was just so busy in my group. But I arrived at 8:35. And when I arrived, I got a call from someone that I had broken up with just a few weeks prior. And he was just asking me how my day was going to be. And I was just a bit annoyed because I just came in. I didn't have my tea. I was just kind of like, I just wanted to finish this project before the guy that I was working with had come in. And as soon as I hung up the phone, that's when I heard the roar of an airplane engine. Now, I was on the 95th floor. So even then, I would never hear anything above our heads, and our walls were all glass. As many of you remember, the World Trade Center was comprised of just glass all around each building. So the next thing I heard was a boom, and it sounded like a bomb. And I saw one of the guys across the floor just yell out, I think a plane just hit Tower 1. And as soon as that happened, the glass in my office shattered, and there was just heat coming in. The only thing I remember from that moment was grabbing my suitcase and my purse. I was running for the stairs, and a coworker of mine, Lori, who I'd never spoken to, but I'd worked in the same department with for 2 years, actually for a year, she grabbed me and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm going towards the stairs. And she said, "No, you're coming with me in the elevator." I said, "No, because in an emergency situation, we take the stairs." And she said, "No, you're coming with me." So I remember just running with her into the elevator, and then it stopped on the 90th floor. The 90th floor was the human resources and the legal departments. And the only person I saw, just people on their phones screaming, crying. And there was one person that came in with us. There were actually 4 of us in the elevator. And then we came to the 78th floor, which was the main elevator bank for Tower 2. As soon as we got out, there were just just looked like hundreds of people just running around, not knowing what to do. And my coworker Lori and I and Andrew ran into the elevator, pretty much pushed our way in until someone said, "No more people, we can't fit any more people." As soon as the door closed, I was wondering, am I still alive? And I think that people around me were kind of thinking the same thing. I mean, what are we doing here? Are we really taking the elevator in a time where there's a plane or something that that hit the first tower? What are we doing? And it just felt like forever to get down to the lobby. And as soon as we got down to the lobby, I saw Lori going towards Liberty Street, and I walked towards the other side through the lobby. And then I looked up, and then I saw the second plane as it hit Tower 2. So I just stood
Oh my
there.
God. I just have chills as you're telling this story.
It was definitely surreal, because it didn't seem like, it wasn't a work day. We were not at war. This was not Syria. This was not a war. It was something so much deeper and so much more. It just seemed like it affected the world. And when I saw Liberty Street, because I just saw like through the building, and I saw Liberty Street, and I saw beams on fire. Then I saw cars on fire, and then I saw the NYPD, the FDNY, everybody's kind of, and then I just saw papers on the floor just burning. It didn't seem right that where we had 25 or so thousand people in one place, kind of confused and not knowing what to do. This was a time for the military to come in, and we just all were business people. And it was just very, very surreal. And my coworker Andrew saw me, and he approached me, and he told me that I don't remember this, but he actually said that he saw me just look up and just kept watching people jump. And that was something that I didn't remember. It came to me like 5 years after, but he was the one who said, "Let's start walking." So we walked to the South Street Seaport, and I didn't have any no connection on my cell, nor did anybody else. But I'm going to date myself here, but I had a Palm Pilot, and I was able
I'm right there with you, so we'll date ourselves together.
Well, I was able to send a message to my ex-boyfriend, the one I was just on the phone with, and he knew my mom and dad's cell phone number. So, he was able to contact them. But my mom, this was pretty heartbreaking, because my mom worked only 3 blocks away, and she saw the first plane as it hit. And she said, "No, my daughter is not in that building. She's fine. Let me just call her." And as she was trying to call me, I didn't answer. So she hung up the phone, and then she saw the second plane as it hit, and then she collapsed.
Oh my God.
They pretty much dragged her out, because she was working for a federal building. She was working for the World Environmental Protection Agency. So she had to leave. And the next thing I know, we're in South Street Seaport, and then we saw the second tower collapse, and people were actually running towards the water because it looked as if the tower was going to collapse on us. And once the debris started to, once the dust clouds started coming toward us, Andrew said, let's start walking. Let's start walking. And, we were just, I wasn't completely covered in soot, but I had, I was wearing like a magenta blouse and a black skirt and black heels. And I had like silver or something weird that was sticking to me. And we walked to 35th Street, and he was able to get on the ferry to New Jersey, and I was able to get a cab, which was a miracle because everybody was trying to get a cab, but I got a cab. And in the book, I actually talk about it a little bit more, but the cab driver was an angel for me because he kept me calm and got me back to my mom's house. And she got home 15 minutes later. She took the train. It took her 6 hours to get home by train. I don't know how long it took me from 35th Street to there, but it seemed like 2 hours. So that night, I just didn't know how to speak. All I knew, I was getting calls from people's parents calling me and saying, have you seen my son? Have you seen my daughter? Up until like 1 o'clock in the morning, people were calling me, just seeing if I knew anything. And I think the aftermath of that was the most heart-wrenching because I had really, really close friends. These were people that you spend, when you're in corporate America, you spend a third of your day with these people. And in an instant, they were gone. They were taken. And so that was the hardest part for me to deal with over the years. Every anniversary is the same thing. Hearing the names, hearing knowing the fact that they're not here, and it wasn't their fault. So.
And what about Lori?
Lori, I hadn't heard from her until we found each other on Facebook.
Okay.
And she, it's such a touching thing because I keep telling her, you saved my life. And, she said, well, you saved mine. And, we haven't seen each other since. She's in Long Island and I'm, in the city, but we'll always have that connection, even though we never spoke until that day. That day, we became connected.
Yeah. And if you were brought together for no other reason, I mean, it's just incredible.
Yes, it really is.
So how did that change everything for you?
Well, like I said in the very beginning, yoga and meditation was something that I started to do. I started to practice. So I did not, since the tragedy, I did not do anything. I didn't meditate. I didn't practice yoga. I worked out sometimes. I almost pretended that it didn't exist because 2 weeks after the tragedy, my boss called me and said, we need you to handle disaster recovery in Florida. So I went to Florida and I missed all of the memorials. I didn't go. So I was kind of removed from that whole thing. And it took a year for me to get back to yoga, get back into meditation. And just knowing that I had it in me, that I had already been practicing before the tragedy, it wasn't something that I had to start with. It was something that I could build off of to be able to handle the post-traumatic stress, the tremors, pretty much everything that had to do with 9/11, especially also the anxiety, because a couple of days after the tragedy, I was coughing up blood and the doctors found there was debris in my lungs, which still affects me to this day. So meditation was extremely important for me to stay calm, even when I couldn't breathe, even though I knew that there was something wrong. So 9/11 shaped how I was, but yoga and meditation shaped the way I dealt with 9/11.
So for someone listening, this could sound like extreme, right? You have this horrible post-traumatic stress and like a meditation practice, they could sound like they're at such far ends of the spectrum. So like, How do you, when you're feeling that way, and I can't begin to imagine how it feels, like, how do you sit down to meditate? Like, how does that, or do you just like meet yourself there and see what happens? Like, how does it even come together?
If okay, so let's say, let's say I feel like I'm on the verge of a panic attack. And the panic attack has something to do with the fact that, and I was working out. Actually, this is a real example. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I couldn't breathe when I was working out. I'm usually okay with running, 2 to 3 miles before I work out, and for some reason I was doing sit-ups and I couldn't breathe. It was the weirdest thing. I was wheezing, and then what I normally do in that situation is be with the fact that I need to relax. That's the first thing. Be aware and be okay with that, and not beat myself up for feeling the way I do. It's a real reaction. So then, knowing that, I calm down, I sit, and what I say to myself is, I am home. I'm here. I am home. I'm in the present moment. I'm not there. I'm here. So it's not really, it is meditation, but it's not a silent meditation where you're just, when you're telling yourself, okay, knowing the thoughts are there, pretend that they're clouds, they're going to drift away. Yes, I do that too. But when it comes to severe anxiety, I have to first be with that anxiety, know that it's there and it's real, and be able to say the anxiety is something that is from something that happened in the past. In the present moment, nothing is making me anxious.
I just think it's really powerful for people to hear that. So if people, have similar anxiety or levels of stress, or even are just trying to meet themselves in the moment, what you said about awareness and just saying these things to yourself and bringing yourself back into the moment, it can be as simple and as powerful as that. So I really love that example.
Yeah, I'm happy that you do, because that I think the misconception with meditation is that you have to, sit in a comfortable seat. You have to close your eyes. You have to do this. You have to do that. But really, meditation could be just knowing that you're doing something in the moment, and that you're safe. And like I find meditation, I find washing dishes meditation, because I'm present with it, and I'm breathing mindfully as I'm doing it. I'm not upset that I'm doing it. I'm actually very, very at peace with the fact that I'm doing the dishes, and I know I'm doing the dishes, that I'm not just doing the dishes just, robotically, as if it's not something that I do every day. Of course it is. Yes. But I'm doing something new today. And that is, it's another level of meditation where I find that people can respond to better, not better, but easier, when they're feeling like, I can't meditate. This is ridiculous. I've been here for 15 minutes and I still can't do it. So I tell them, when you go out for a walk, know that you're walking. Know with each step that you're alive, that you're watching, that you're a witness to everything, and that you are at peace with who you are and where you are and how you are.
I'm just nodding my head because yeah, unbeknownst to me, started using that technique when I was recovering from my addiction. So when and I had had horrible anxiety and panic attacks, and just that, what you're describing, just being where I was instead of like on autopilot or in the past or in the future or numbing things out. It was just like, I'm in this moment and I'm okay. And still, like 8 years later, I still do that all the time. And it serves me well. Like, just noticing what's going on around me was something brand new to me.
Well, I'm really happy that we're at this place, that we're not, when you say addictions, addictions are something. And when, like, for me, like, I was a heavy drinker. And what happened was, I wasn't considered an alcoholic, even though I went to therapy and I said, I'm an alcoholic. she said, you're really into thinking that you are. And so I realized that whatever addiction it is, that when you're aware that you have an addiction and that you've made the first step to get out of that situation, to actually be who you are now, the anxiety still comes from the past. It still happens every day when you're staying, like, as if I were to say every day I think about 9/11 every day. It's almost like part of that addiction where you're like, we can never move forward. And I love that the word that you said, autopilot. I think autopilot is something that we're doing almost every day if we're not meditating.
I agree. Like just noticing what's going on in the world around you, or just being really present with the people that you're talking to or how you're feeling. Like and also to me, autopilot is also a form of numbing, right? You're just racing from one thing to the next so you can avoid the present moment because maybe it's uncomfortable.
It is so uncomfortable. And I think the more we do this, the more we can bring awareness to others, especially those with addictions. Like I know some people who my friend who was working with me, not on that day, but she keep every day. She's always like, I miss what we had because we used to go out and we used to go out every night and hang out, and now we don't do that anymore. So she's literally addicted to that feeling of being happy before 9/11. That is, and I told her, maybe now we can start moving towards the better times that we have right now, because we're all still here. My closest friends who I worked with are still here.
Yeah, a lot of times I refer to it, you can let me know how this resonates with you, is like, yeah, we have this raw material, right? Like these horrendous things can happen and it can easily drag us down, but it's like, what are we going to do with it? Like what can we create? And sometimes it takes a long time and it is just a minute of meditation here and something there. But over time, if we keep doing those things, it really makes a big difference and we can create a new life.
Exactly. Every day we can create a new life. And even with our breath, even as we breathe in and out, every cell is rejuvenating. So we are literally, we're recreating every moment.
So and maybe the answer is still meditation, but in those really tough moments, where fell back into the pain of that experience, how did you find the will to create all the incredible things you're doing now and like just really push yourself forward? I don't know if push is the right word either, but I think you know what I mean.
Yes, no, I do. Um, when, I'm not, this is what I love. I'm not here to say everything was unicorns and rainbows over the last, however, now 19 years. There have been times where I've been feeling like, okay, I have to remember that I'm obviously here for a reason, that I'm not going to give up, and I'm not going to be a victim of my life. And so there was a time a few years ago where I was really down, and I was really just, I couldn't get myself on the mat, which I do 6 days a week. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm on my mat every single day. And then one day I couldn't meditate. I just didn't want to practice at all. And so I contacted my guru in New Delhi, and he said, okay. So I just explained, he said, what exactly is going on? And I explained to him, I just don't know. I just can't get myself, not even motivated. I'm so depressed. I can't even get myself out of bed. And he said, okay. And he said, what are you doing for others? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, are you teaching? And I said, no, I canceled my classes. And he said, okay, see if they're available. Because when you begin to have selfless service and you're practicing karma yoga is when you provide a service without looking for a reward. Offer now your students that you canceled with, offer them a free class and give them the service that they deserve. You will feel better because you're removing yourself from your anxiety, but you're also giving back, and without looking for any reward. You're completely giving yourself to somebody else. And that's how I began seeing the power of selfless service, as opposed to saying, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe I can't get out of bed, all of this. When I know that there's actually somebody who can benefit from my knowledge, it's so much different, and so much, it's something that is so deep in my heart to do. It's everything.
It's just beautiful. And it is such a powerful reminder, because we all get to those points, right? I'll include myself in this group where, like you just like, I am so low. And I also practice yoga regularly. So I identify with those times where you're just like, I can't even go on the mat to do like the simplest thing. I'm like, you don't even have to do a full practice. Just get on there and, stretch your body a bit. So I just love that wisdom from him. And I mean, it's just a pearl of incredible wisdom.
It really is. And at the same time, has in yoga, in the in Hinduism, they tell their students, read the Bhagavad Gita. And it's weird because I actually read it right before I started feeling this low, like you were saying, I'm just so low. I can't get out of this. I feel like the light is so far away. And I remember reading in the Bhagavad Gita that is, when you practice karma yoga and looking for no reward, it becomes a part of you to keep doing it. And that is literally like almost like paying off your karmic debt every time you do that. And whatever debt that is, whether it be hurting someone or doing something that was not right to that person, or whatever it was, it's almost like you're redeeming yourself by just giving, really.
I like it too, because I think I was saying to you sometimes, when people are asking me about their intention setting practice, there's so much in our sphere that's, do these 5 steps and you're going to be here. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be set. And I like this illustration because it also just reminds all of us that, on this path, like we're going to have highs and lows. So it is this practice of constant realignment. So whether it is like meditation or yoga or being of service, like it's really that awareness of where am I and how do I shift back into alignment.
Exactly. That's all. I love that. It's really just, it's shifting back into alignment. And I think that's where the physical practice of yoga comes in, because how I teach is not only alignment, I specialize in alignment with the body, but I also, with each breath, align the breath with the movement and have them like really imagine themselves grounded, like completely one with the earth. There's no separation. And there's no separation between the earth, the universe, anything. And because yoga is yoking, it's bringing together. I think that's when you find that shifting from to not being aligned to completely aligned with everything that you are in the present moment.
It's yoga is just such, I mean, I think we do get this misconception, unfortunately, because of our friend Instagram, that it is only, all of these beautiful moves, but it really is the practice of being with yourself. Like I know when I meet myself on the mat this way, I'm like, okay, here we are, what are we going to do today? And sometimes, my body feels great. And other times, like I have to remind it, like we've been here before, remember?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I think that's why, even with my own practice, I like to share more meditative practices as opposed to a lot of the advanced poses that are shown there now. It is it is of course part of the yoga practice, but I think that when you're sitting in meditation, that was the first. That's why I put in my bio. I teach off the 8 limbs of yoga, and meditation is the first. So, knowing that, I think it's important for people to understand that when somebody says, "How do I get into yoga?" I said, "Can you sit?" And they laugh at me. They're like, "No, I mean practicing yoga." I said, "I know. Can you sit?" Because if you can sit quietly and listen, then we'll be able to practice together, and I can be your guide.
It's beautiful, and it's such a reminder, right? Like just really come back to the basics, to the sitting and your breath, and everything will come from there.
Exactly, exactly. And without the breath, there is no life. And without the breath, there is no movement. And in yoga, prana is a life force. Prana is what got you out of bed and onto your mat. That's the life force. That's what elevates you. Because I don't like the word push either.
I know, I was
You
like,
know,
that's so the wrong word. It's too, yeah, it's the wrong
no,
energy.
but just kind of elevates you
Yes.
and brings you forward
Yes.
into whatever other movement that will be, whether it be just sitting and then maybe coming into a lighter pose, something that warms you up. That's prana, and that's the life force. That's part of who we are every single day.
It's incredible. And so tell us, like, so with that, where we started our conversation to now, and I know it's like many years, but like, what brought you here? Like, how did things shift from, corporate America to the work you're doing now?
The time spent in corporate America were times that, I mean, I started my career on Wall Street from a very young age. So leaving corporate America was very, very scary, nerve wracking, but something had to be done because I knew that there was something in my life where I had to really make myself um, more accessible to building my business. And that at the time was building a professional speaking career, which I could not do by, with working at a job unless I would, work extra hours to get vacation days, but that just didn't make sense. So I really wanted to build a professional speaking career and write the book. So the writing the book took 3 years, and my co-author, he actually had the idea of the book, and when he would write, I would elaborate. So it was a great combination and a great collaboration between the two of us to create the book, and I'm really proud of it. And I had a publishing coach who said, when you get this book published, you're actually giving birth to something. And I never forgot that, because when I felt that when I saw the actual book in my hand, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is real. It's a tangible thing, but it's actually real. And so it was a really great thing. And I'm actually I'm writing my next book on my own. And so
Amazing.
yeah, I mean, I started last year, and I'm just kind of getting the ideas together. But that's what a great editor does. A great editor will take whatever you threw up on, whatever you vomited on a computer, and piece it together. So I have a great editor who I worked with before with the other book, and I'm looking forward to my next creation. So
It's amazing. And I do want to just like pop in here and say that your book is called Pursuing Your Destiny. So where can people find it?
it can be found on Amazon.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I agree with you. Like it's funny, like when you create something like that, you feel, well, at first, like I would feel like, oh, this is the end. Like it's done, it's complete, it's in the world. But then once it's in the world, and people are reading it, like it just, yeah, like takes on a life of its own. Like you have no idea who's going to pick it up and be impacted or where it's going to lead things.
Exactly. There was a few months ago, I got a DM on Instagram from someone who said it was around Christmas. Actually, he got a Christmas present, and it was the book. And he and I had already been following each other, but I hadn't mentioned the book in a little while. So when he posted it, he said, "Guess what I got?" And I couldn't believe it. He's in Maryland somewhere. He received it as a Christmas present. Like it just seemed like you said, like it's like who you would never know who's going to have the book in their hand and who's going to post about it and say I'm loving this book, and I'm like, who are you? What?
It's amazing. And are you willing to give us like a little like sampler of what the direction of the new book, or is that under wraps?
No, it's actually yeah. I mean, there is an experience over a few months when I was back in New York, and I wasn't working. I just got out of school, wasn't working. I had no idea where the direction of my life was going to go. And so I decided to ride the subway in the afternoons and document the stories of who I spoke to. And it was crazy how I was able to make conversations with people. One woman, she's in a family of veterans. Her husband, her two sons, her father was a veteran. And like me, I'm a family of veterans too. So just something like that, you just start a conversation with someone and it becomes a real story, a real touching story about someone's life in the middle at 2 o'clock p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon.
I love it. It's just in, and you have to be, again, back to what we were saying, like in the present moment and open and willing to see this person on the subway and hear their story. Like it's so basic and yet so profound and beautiful at the same time.
And and especially when, if you start talking to somebody on the subway, one, they'll either run away or kind of tell you where to go. But sometimes, it just happens where you start talking to someone and it becomes a profound and beautiful experience when that person decides to open up. So I think it was really those 2 months of riding the subway like twice or three times a week helped me, keep writing and make this maybe a chapter of the book.
That also sounds to me like, a version of karma yoga, right? Like just really, I mean, people just want and need to be seen and heard and share their stories. And I mean, they gave you the gift of their story, but just you're listening to them and witnessing them is very powerful too.
Yes, you know what? I didn't even think of it that way. But yes, I think that when someone, there was someone who was talking about their addiction, and they were on their way um, to a meeting, and he was literally saying, I do this once a week, and every day, every time that I go, I'm anxious, and I'm embarrassed at the same time, but I know that I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to. So that kind of strength also just touches my heart because he has the will to do that. It's the stories I'm telling you. I'm just so amazed by what I heard.
It's amazing. And probably, by him saying that, like having been in a similar position to him, just by saying it, strengthens that will, right? And you're just listening and not judging him, and he's going to go on his way, but you've honored him just by, yeah, recognizing him.
Yeah, and I couldn't help but do that because why did he even tell me that? It was basically because he just knew that there was something that I could listen, that I was there, I was present with him, I wasn't going anywhere. So here we are.
That's beautiful. Well, I can't wait to read that book. And the other thing that I just wanted to ask you about, and what I want you to share is you are the founder of Empowerment Within. So I just wanted you to share like the full scope of, your work in the world and the projects you're working on so that people can learn a little bit more about that.
Well, Empowerment Within was created to help people when if they wanted to write a book, pretty much give them the tools and refer them to the right people. And also to as a coach, because I was in the media, I would coach people as how to not react, but how to keep calm during media interviews, like with CNN or whatever media outlet they're on, and pretty much at the same time, keeping them mindful, teaching them a few breathwork techniques in order to kind of keep themselves in the topic. Because I know a lot of times when people are in the media and they get nervous, they tend to kind of shift away and they start not babbling, but they just start talking about other things. And the media is very on the go, on the spot, now, now, now. So that's what I was doing. That whole consulting firm was that. It was also about just getting more engagement on social media with certain tools that I had, because I was also a web designer, so I knew how to use the right keywords. So those things were all wrapped up into one package. Nowadays, the consulting firm is actually now, as someone who promotes small businesses, have them really get engagement on their Instagram, their social media accounts, and see if I can help promote them with my following.
It's amazing. I just love it. I just thank you for your time. Like everything that you shared, I just feel like there's just a lot here for people to take in. I think they might even want to listen like a few times because there's so much here to pick up. And as we were talking even before this started, in terms of, offering some wisdom to listeners, maybe they really identify with your story. What words of inspiration or parting thoughts would you like to leave with them today?
Well, what just came to me is whatever low vibration you're feeling, whether it be something that hurt you, something that irritated you, something that you feel that you cannot get out of, just please remember that it's all coming from your past, that nothing from that past could actually hurt you now unless you give that power to it.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. And also, we'll put it all in the show notes, but where are the best places for people to find you, follow you, keep in touch with what you're up to?
Well, my website is The Empowerment Within, and there I have the links to my Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of my social media accounts. Sorry about that. That was background.
No worries. My dog's here trying to get in on the show too, so.
But through there is where you can join also my Empowerment Strategies newsletter. And that's where I actually am looking for guest bloggers. So you can contact me through my newsletter or through my Instagram and see where we can go from there.
Amazing. Mikaila, just thank you so much for everything you've shared today. And just, you're just a constant source of inspiration. I'm just really grateful for you.
Thank you so much. You as well, Adrienne. I appreciate this so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. May some of the wisdom shared here inspire your most intentional living. For more information about this episode, this podcast, intentional living, and my work in the world, please visit mayyouknowjoy.com. You can also find my May You Know Joy and Seeds of Intention cards there, and my book, Intentional Days. You'll also find details for the Intentional Days membership, where you can gain access to a thriving community of intentional souls and lots of regular inspiration. I've got you covered. Until next time, I wish you great joy and many intentional days.